Hi, I'm Barry Secion, and this is what you can do with the jazz standard for bass, Footprints. Footprints is a great tune, very popular amongst the jazz community, and you can't go wrong learning because it's a lot of fun to play. It's very simple. It's got a unique bass line using tenths. Not so unique, I'll tell you why. Another song that uses tenths that you are most familiar with, most of you, and that would be Come Together by the Beatles. Okay, that's the line from Come Together. Now let's take a look at the line from Footprints. Now this is in C minor, and now what is a tenth for those of you who do not know? It's a third up an octave away from the root. So instead of you're playing, and in the case of Come Together, there's a third, or let's take a look at the form, the harmony, the bass line, and how to approach this when you're playing with other people. There's some things you must know. We'll start off with the key signature. That would be E flat. 3 flats, that means you're in the key of E flat, but in this case, it's a C minor for the first chord, so it lets you know we're in a relative minor, key of C minor. Also, you must realize this is a blues progression. It goes 1, 4, 5, basically. So let me show you the introduction, which is right here. Sounds like this. So you're playing that, vamping. Maybe the guitar player is playing a few riffs, or the keyboard, or whatever, saxophone, and you're just hanging there waiting for the song to actually start. You're not going to know when the song starts until you hear the first 2 measures of the melody, which would be. When you hear that, you are now into the form of the song, which is 24 measures. So nothing really changes from the introduction. The only thing that changes is now you're playing the form. You have 24 measures coming after this. It goes all the way down to here. So you have to know where you are. So as soon as you hear that melody, you're right into the first 4 measures of the song, the form. And so you have to count, you have to know where you are, because what's going to happen is you play the first 4 measures with the melody. Then it goes again, 4 more measures. Okay, now what's going to happen is we're going up to the 4 chord, because this is a blues after all. And that would be right here. The F minor, C minor for 8 measures, F minor for 4 measures. Going back to the 1 chord next, and that would be right here, 4 more measures. This next section would be where the 5 chord is. But they do a couple of things different here I'd like to explain, and there are different interpretations of these 4 measures we must look at, so to avoid confusion. So that is D7, and then D flat 7, which is a 5/7 of a 5/7 to the C minor. Then we have the last 4 measures right here, C minor again. Okay, that's the whole 24 measures. Now what I'd like to do is go back to the 5 chord section, which is right here. There's alternative changes they use in the most recent copy of the real book, and other people use it too. It provides more darker harmony, and they put in 4 changes where this D7 to D flat 7 is. is. So you don't want to get spooked when you see it. If someone throws a chart in front of you or you start to hear a lot more stuff, you're okay to just play the D to the D flat 7. And I'll show you what it looks like. You could all of a sudden see this. So right now, I am going to explain why we have two changes here, the D7th and the D flat 7, 2 measures apiece, 4 measures for the 5/7 section, the dominant section of the song. And as I explained, or I'm going to explain again right now, this is Wayne Shorter. His original F sharp minor 7 flat 5, F7 sharp 11, E7 flat 5 sharp 9, and A7 flat 5 sharp 9, as opposed to the D7th and the D flat 7. And as you can imagine, it would be very confusing to someone that isn't really in advanced jazz harmony. So I'm going to explain it to you, and I don't expect you're going to understand this right away, but whatever you can pick up on it, and you'll understand some things of how a jazz musician thinks, which is important, and chord extensions, and why you see these extended chords and they work on a D7. Why? Well, let me explain why. All these extensions create darker harmonies in different intervals, and it sounds richer, and it's just what a jazz musician does. That's part of the improvisation, coming up with advanced harmonies and making it sound much different and unique and artistic. But anyway, let's take a look at this right now. First, I want to explain what you're looking at. So here's a D7th and the D flat 7, which you already know by now from what was studied so far. And 2 measures apiece, 2 measures of D7 and 2 measures of D flat 7, okay? So now let's take a look at this. Is an F sharp minor 7 flat 5, an F7 sharp 11, E7 flat 5 sharp 9, and A7 flat 5 sharp 9. Okay, we know that now. So what we have here is the arpeggios. A D7 is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. In this case, D is the root, F sharp is the third, A is the fifth, and C is the flat 7 of the D7 chord. Now, I put it here. It's the same thing, so we can compare, vertically what's going on when I start to go, have to do something like that. Now we go to the D flat 7, right? And a D flat 7 is spelled out arpeggio-wise: D flat, F, A flat, and B. D flat the root, F the major third, A flat the 5, and B the flat 7. And it repeats over here again, so I don't need to explain that to you. Now let's go downstairs here, or whatever you would like to call it, and we have the, these chords I've already outlined, I believe, and we're going to look at the arpeggios of these chords, and we're going to compare it to what happens up here. These arpeggios compared to that. So we're going to find, or you're going to see, some of the notes are in common, and some of the notes, the additional notes on the extended harmonies, create more harmony and more intervals, different intervals. So it's all going to come together. Let me go through it. I'm going to go through it note by note and compare it with the D7 and D flat 7. And so we'll start with the F sharp minor 7 flat 5. Let's look at that. So we have the root on the D7 is a D. We look down here and we do not see anything that relates to that. Something does, but it's a little bit further out, and I'll leave that behind. So we go to the next chord tone on the D7th chord, which is an F sharp, the major third, and we see an F sharp as well down here on the F sharp minor 7 flat 5, which is the root. So the major third on the D7th now becomes the root of the F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So, okay, now let's go to the next chord tone, which is an A on a D7th, and that would be the fifth of the D7th chord, D, F sharp, A. A is the fifth. you'll notice down here we have an A on the F sharp minor 7 flat 5, which is the third, the minor third of the F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So there's a match. You have the fifth of the D7th is a match, which is an A, with the minor third of the F sharp minor 7 flat 5. Same tone. So let's look now at the C. We have a match here. A C. You see a C on the top and a C on the bottom. There's a C in the D7th chord, and there's a C in the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 chord. In the case of the D, it is a flat 7 chord tone. So we go down to the C relating to the F sharp minor 7 flat 5, and this would be the flat 5. F sharp, A, C. That would be a lowered fifth, flat 5. So now you see we have, so now you're going to see we have 3 chord tones that match. So now you're beginning to see, hopefully, that even though they seem like they're totally different chord changes, there's 3 common tones in the chord tones of the arpeggio. So that's, now you might begin to see why these substitutions work. And it gets a lot more complicated, but I can only go so far in this lesson because I don't want to lose you. And I want to cut through and have you understand a little about what's going on with all of these substitutions and different chords that mean the same thing. Basically, they do the same function pretty much. So now we are on the next chord, which is right here, F7 sharp 11. And it's up here, it's still a D7th as I explained before. And let's take a look at the first note in the D7 chord and how it relates with the F7 sharp 11. So we have a D, and we're not seeing anything down there that matches, as you can see. So let's move on to the next chord tone, which is an F sharp. That will be the major third of the D7 chord. And we look down here, and we're not seeing any match on the F7 sharp 11. We see F, A, C, E flat, B, no D, no F sharp. We struck out. Okay, let's go to the next chord tone on the D, which is an A, the fifth. That is the fifth. D, F sharp, A. That will be the fifth of the D7th chord. And we do have an A match down here below. You can see there's an A here and there's A there. But on the F7 sharp 11, this A would be a third of that chord. A would be the third of the F7 sharp 11 chord. So we have a match. Let's go to the next chord tone, and we have a C. A C is the flat 7 of the D chord. Now you take it and you go down to here. A C would be a fifth of the F7 sharp 11 chord. F, A, C, E flat, B are the chord tones of the F7 sharp 11. As you can see, the C is a match. It's a fifth of the F7 sharp 11 chord, and it is a flat 7 of the D7th chord. So you have 2 chord tones that are a match. There's 2 left that don't match, but they still make sense as well. So instead of comparing the top note with the bottom chord, we're going to take and compare the bottom note and see what it does on the top chord. So we look now, I'm going to get rid of some of these boxes. So we're going to take the F, which is not a match on the D7th chord, but the F could be a raised 9. And that's good. It's a jazz tone. Raised 9. As you can see, there's a raised 9 in some of the other changes here. So the A is a match. We know that. And the C is a match. Now we have an E flat. Now how does that relate to a D chord? Well, that would be a flat 9. So by this playing this chord, F7 sharp 11, you're kind of adding a flat 9 to the basic chord and the bass note, actually. Okay, and the last tone we have is a B. There's no match for that up here. So how would that relate to the D chord? Well, that would be a 13th. So you see, everything makes sense, and it's complicated, and jazz players think these things all the time, and they're constantly thinking this, and they're very skilled at it. And so let's move on now. the D flat 7 chord. So we're going to take the first tone and look down here, and we don't see anything like that here. No D flat, we struck out. Okay, let's go for the next chord tone, which is an F, and we're not seeing any F on the E7 flat 5 with a sharp 9. Alright, so we struck out twice again. Now let's go to the A flat. Now, the A flat is actually a G sharp. It is called an enharmonic note. They have different names, but it's the same pitch. G sharp and A flat are the same. Same note. I know that's a lot to take in, but bear with me. On the B, the note B is a flat 7 to the D flat 7. A 5 on an E7th chord would be a B, but as you can see, it's a flat 5 here. So this B really doesn't work. So now what we want to do is, once again, let's take the bottom notes, the bottom row right here, and check out how it adds to the D flat 7. You know, it's an extended chord, but in this case, it's no duplicate. There's only a couple of duplicates there, but you have extra notes left over, and they add to the harmony. The keyboard plays it on top of the bass part, and it adds a different tonality. Let's take it. So we get an E, right? And there's no E up here, so how does that work with the D flat 7? That would be a raised 9. So by playing that E, you're creating a raised 9 tone. And then we go to the G sharp here, right? And we already explained that's the same as A flat. And then we go to the B flat. Now this, the B flat against the D flat 7 chord, would be a 13th. So the keyboard next would be an E flat. The E flat is a natural 9. D flat, second degree, is E flat or 9th. Same thing, second degree and 9th. So we've covered everything here. Let's move on to the next chord, which would be A7 flat 5 sharp 9. And let's look at how these tones go up against the harmony, which is a D flat 7. So we look at the very first note here, which is the root of the D flat 7 chord, and what we have is a duplicate, but this is once again an enharmonic. In other words, C sharp and D flat are the same note. On the D flat chord, the D flat is the root naturally, and on the A7 flat 5 sharp 9, the C sharp will be the third of the A7 flat 5 sharp 9 chord. So we get a match there, and it makes sense. They're both, you know, chord tones. You can't go wrong with chord tones. So the next thing we have is an E flat. No E flat in the D flat 7 chord, but E flat, once again, is a 9, or a major second on 9, same thing. So that, by playing the A7 flat 5 sharp 9, you're adding a 9th with that E flat against the D flat 7 chord. And lastly, we have a C. We have a C, which is a sharp 9 on the A7 flat 5 sharp 9, and it doesn't relate well to the actual arpeggio of D flat 7, but it extends and gives you that great sound of the sharp 9, very dissonant sound. So it works on top of it. There's no duplicate, as there are many in these 4 changes of chord tones. Same chord tone in the 2 different chords. And I hope this helped you understand a little better. And I'm sure I confused some of you, but this is, it gives you a glimpse into how a jazz player thinks. They're thinking about this all the time. As a bass player, you think of these things as well, and not quite as much for most bass players. But as you advance, you can wind up throwing in, duplicating some of these flat 9s and sharp 11s and everything in the bass line if it's being played above you, and it will work. You know, I'm at that point. I did it, but I've been playing for a long time, and I'm looking for fun things to do and creative stuff, and I go there a lot. But as a bass player, you can go there somewhat, but you can't go there too far in, then it becomes a solo, and you're losing the accompaniment role to which everyone is expecting out of you. If you're playing the tune, the head, and backing up someone soloing, they want to hear rock solid all the time. And if you duplicate some of these notes, even though they're not chord tones and they're not strung on their own, you're just duplicating it and reinforcing what the keyboard is playing in its extended harmony. So it works in that respect.